One day, as we sat on the Mount of Olives and overlooked the Temple Mount, I asked Jimmy to lay out the specific nations God reveals will come against Israel in the last days.
Jimmy, as we look across the old city of Jerusalem and we see the Dome of the Rock, the third holiest site for the Islamic world, and you also see the Jewish Temple Mount here, which is the sacred mount of the Jewish people across the world. We see two opposing opinions, and it talks about what's up ahead, the battle for Jerusalem. And I want to ask the question, and people want to know, what are the nations that are mentioned in the Bible, in prophecy, that will have a role in the end time scenario of what happens here in Israel?
You know, John, that Dome of the Rock speaks to that group of nations, that alignment that will come against Israel, because that is a Muslim building. It's a commemorative building that Omar, one of the Muslim leaders, built there on the Temple Mount in 691 AD. But the Islamic world is what is going to basically come together, align themselves to try to destroy the Jewish state, with one exception. Russia is mentioned in the book of Ezekiel chapter 38. Here in the book of Ezekiel chapter 38, which would be the main focus in Bible prophecy, other sections of the Bible we'll look at. But in Ezekiel 38, it talks here in verse 2 about Magog. Gog in the land of Magog. Now, Gog would be the person, Magog would be the particular state that it's talking about. And according to biblical geography, Magog would have been that land mass north of the Caspian and Black Sea, which is Russia today. Then in verse 2, it says Meshech and Tubal. And down in verse 6, it says Gomer and Togarmah. When traveling in Turkey recently, I picked up an ancient Turkish map. And in biblical times, Turkey was actually divided into four parts: Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. So we're now talking about Russia and Turkey. There in verse 5, it says Persia. Until 1936, there were three nations we know today that were known as Persia. Those three nations are Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran.
Okay, we're up on the Golan Heights, and we'll see if Stephen can slow down just a hair. This is the third military hardware base. Look at this. You can see the tanks. They're all just sitting there. We're on the Golan Heights, and there's the tanks. These are Israeli tanks, and this is the third military outpost up here in the Golan Heights. So the first one we saw, there had to be at least 20 tanks. The next one, I don't know how many were there. And now this one, we're up on the Golan Heights. There's some more. There they are. There's some more. All over the hills, all over the Golan Heights, Israeli military presence. And Stephen, you've lived here for a while, so you know this is unprecedented.
It is unprecedented, Brother Paul. We lived here, gosh, I guess, well, it's been about a year and a half now, maybe close to 2 years, but we were up here living in the Golan. I've been on this road many times. There's never, but maybe, you find one or two tanks occasionally. That's it, Brother Paul. Nothing else.
Well, obviously, with the tensions building, with the wars that are raging, the armies that are raging in Syria, and we're very close to the Syrian border, and you have Russia, you have Iran, you have the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Free Syrian Army, the Americans, the French, the British, the Turks, the Kurds. So if you're Israel and you got they're talking a peace agreement, Stephen, and they're saying that Israel in the agreement has to give the Golan Heights up, has to give this land to Syria.
Yes, that's exactly right. They're talking about it. And I have a friend of mine that owned a store down in Tiberias, and they said to her, this was back many years ago, there was actually a priest from Africa that said that the Golan was going to be given up. And I actually have a good friend that was one of the top UN commanders here that asked me, when you're returning back to Israel, brother, are you going to be living in Jerusalem? Are you going to be living in Israel or the Golan? And I wanted to know what was the difference between the Golan and Israel. And it was because the Golan is going to be handed over. And this is supposed to be a known fact already.
So we've seen several United Nations vehicles go past us, even.
Security Council has passed a resolution urging Israel to stop building settlements on occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. It calls the settlements a flagrant violation under international law.
En contra?
The resolution was passed after the U.S. abstained from voting, an unusual move that came even as both Donald Trump and Israel called on the U.S. to use its veto.
14 votos.
14 votes in favor, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2334.
Danny Danon is the Israeli ambassador to the UN. He joins us now live from New York. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to Special Report.
Good evening, Shannon.
Your reaction to today's vote?
We are disappointed. We have heard President Obama himself coming to the UN and saying that the only way to promote peace in the Middle East is through direct negotiations and not to adopt resolutions of the Security Council. And we ask ourselves what happened today? What changed? Why the U.S. abandoned Israel and allowed a shameful resolution to pass at the Security Council right at the transition period?
Republican Senator Tom Cotton out of Arkansas had this to say. He said President Obama is personally responsible for this anti-Israel resolution. His diplomats secretly coordinated the vote, yet he doesn't even have the courage of his own convictions to vote for it. Do you think the president, or the accusations are also out there, that Secretary Kerry actually pushed this resolution? Do you think their fingerprints are on it?
In the last 8 years, we always heard from the administration that they would support constructive steps to promote peace in the Middle East. And there is nothing constructive about this resolution.
So now we're going to talk for a few seconds about the actual resolutions that the United Nations adopted on November 29th and November 30th of last month, of this year, I mean, just a few days ago. So, when I read it, I laughed. I laughed because they said that Israel is to transfer control of the Golan Heights to Syria. And I was like thinking to myself, who is the brainless person that would even vote for something like that, knowing that there is no one in Syria to talk to and nothing to talk about? The Golan Heights themselves on the Syrian side are having rebels, are having Al-Qaeda, are having Jabhat al-Nusra, are having ISIS, are having Russian soldiers, are having Hezbollah. Who do we transfer it to exactly?
בינלאומית תכיר במציאות, ובעיקר בשתי עובדות יסוד. אחת, מה שלא יהיה מעבר לגבול, הקו עצמו לא הולך להשתנות. שתיים, הגיע הזמן אחרי 50 שנה שהקהילה הבינלאומית תכיר סוף סוף בכך שהגולן יישאר לצמיתות תחת